This video has the goofiest thumbnail because I was adjusting the camera as I took it. And again, it's really bright, so one half of the screen or a third of it is this very bright light, and it's bright outside, but I still want to go ahead and get this video done. This is the first of the Ascendant specific videos that ostensibly is about the August 11th eclipse, but it's really a little bit more about all three eclipses, partly because when it comes to people with a Gemini Ascendant, there really is an interesting narrative at work, and it's very hard to just talk about one eclipse without talking about the other two. And partly because it's now August the 16th, and we are now past 1 month of the July 12th eclipse, and so we're getting to a place where that itself is also starting to manifest and show. So you know, if it takes me another month to get to talking about that particular eclipse, it doesn't make sense. So I'm use this more as a general update on all eclipses. But I'm going to focus more on the August 11th eclipse that just happened over this past weekend and inaugurates a 6-month cycle or so that lasts till January the 21st, 2019. Because we have a solar eclipse in Leo that just happened on August the 11th, 2018, and a lunar eclipse in Leo that's going to happen on January the 21st, 2019. The sequence in which I'm going to first talk about the July 12th solar eclipse in Cancer. Then I'm going to talk about the July 27th lunar eclipse in Aquarius, and then I'm going to talk about the August 11th solar eclipse in Leo. Basically, all the new moons and full moons that we've had for a little over a month, okay? Eclipses, as I've said many times before, happen in pairs. They happen it's often a new moon or a full moon following each other, or a full moon or a new moon following each other, number one. And they happen in opposite signs, typically. Or when the sun and the moon are together, a new moon, or appear to be together from where we are on planet Earth, and when they appear to be opposite each other. Since, I would argue, December of 2016, the Leo-Aquarius eclipses have been active. We know they have been active. When I say I would argue, the first of the Leo eclipses was February the 9th, I think, 2017. And I would argue that it really made its presence felt around December the 9th, 2016. So that's the part where I'm posing something that's specific to me. We know that the eclipses have been happening in Leo and Aquarius. On July the 12th of this year, 2018, a little over a month ago, was the first of the eclipses that took place in the sign of Cancer. The eclipses are moving from Leo Aquarius to Cancer Capricorn. And the Cancer Capricorn eclipses will be active for the second half of this year, but they're going to be handing off. The Leo Aquarius eclipses are also going to be active in the second half of this year. But when you get to 2019 and 2020, it's going to be the Cancer Capricorn ascendants that are going to be active. It's a handoff. The nodes of the moon that cause the eclipses, I'm not going to get too technical, are moving from, they've been in Leo Aquarius and active, I would argue, since December 2016. They've been moving, and now they're starting to move towards Cancer and Capricorn. Okay? July 12th, new moon, 2018, new moon partial solar eclipse in Cancer. For you, Gemini Ascendant folks, the focus since July the 12th, and when I look at a solar eclipse, I find that it happened on July the 12th. Some people are hit by eclipse energy right away, within 48 hours to 2 weeks of the new moon. Some people are hit by the solar eclipse 2 months from it, September the 12th, give or take a week around that date. For many people, you have to wait until September 11th and 12th, look back to July the 12th, and really say, okay, what was this eclipse trying to do? It's not about trying to fit things in esoterically and vaguely. It's actually pretty clear. It's pretty clear. Eclipses are pretty dramatic. And it's not unusual for something to get eclipsed. The loss of something. Something gets taken away. Someone should do a study about how many people transition, pass away around the time of the eclipses and at other times. I really think there's an interesting correlation. But anyway. For you, the July the 12th solar eclipse, and indeed the energy of the time is, it wouldn't be surprised if it's starting to ask the question, you might be being invited to consider how you're going to earn money in such a way that is in alignment with you. You may have to actively tackle for the second half of this year, but especially continuing in 2019, 2020, questions such as, what are my gifts? What am I here to do? What does the universe want me to do? Where does the universe want me to be with regard to manifesting abundance or creating an income? And what do I have to deal with or grapple with my own sense of self-worth and self-value and self-esteem so that I can truly... The eclipse, the solar eclipse, the sign of Leo occupies, the sign of Cancer occupies your second house of income and resources and money that is in your name, money that you are bringing in. And modern astrologers tend to put issues related to self-esteem in this part of the house as well. This is not the only place you put it, but it tends to get put here. The argument being your sense of self-worth and what you do and how you tend to earn money and how you ask for what you want and what you think you're worth has a lot to do with how you value yourself and what baggage you're carrying around that. So the question for you since July the 12th of 2018, and whether these events have already happened close to July the 12th, give or take a week or two, whether there's every chance or possibility that by the time you get to September 12th, maybe September 18th, 19th of this year, the question will be posed. What is going on with your ability to earn income or the money that is in your name? Are there issues surrounding it that are coming up? Are there issues surrounding your self-esteem, your worth, your value, what you do, how you earn money? Are you being invited to do it in different ways? It has something to do with the money that is in your name, something to do with the money that you bring in, okay? And that energy has just started and is going to be even more active. And the question, so even if let's take a dramatic scenario, because it doesn't have to be, how can this play out? It could play out that you have an epiphany and you feel like you should be doing something else. And you decide you're going to quit your job and you're going to move in a certain direction. Well, the question then becomes obvious. What direction are you going to move in? And how are you going to decide what that's going to be? And how is it linked to what you think is your place in the world and the value that you hold, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. It could be that you leave a job or you are terminated from a position. It could be outside of those more typical scenarios. It could be that somewhere you're just not happy with. Somewhere, it could also be that to some extent bills are piling up and debts are piling up or something along those lines. And there's a need to stop living off of savings, and there's a need to lean into your own ability to bring in income. And it's time to put your both feet in a certain boat, for example. And the question is, between you and the universe, is there a conspiracy with regard to a decision or hints regarding which direction you need to go in? I'm just making up scenarios, and we have 2 other eclipses to talk about, so I'm not going to spend too much more time on this. But understand that even if, let's say you decide on what this job is by November, I'm making this up, there's something about these energies that will continue to play in 2019 and 2020. And that's going to be specific and individual for each person with a Gemini Ascendant on this planet. Now, July 27th lunar eclipse. This lunar eclipse in Aquarius is part of eclipses that have been in place since December the 9th of 2016. But with this lunar eclipse, we're really looking to June the 7th of 2017 to August the 7th of 2017, and then since February the 15th of this year, give or take a week or two. But those are the dates. June the 7th to August 7th, 2017, February 15th of this year to July the 27th of this year. And it has to be said, the July 27th date is only a marker because the energies are continuing to unfold past July the 27th because the eclipse happened and the planet Mars was retrograde with the eclipse. And Mars is still retrograde, and August 27th is going to go direct in Capricorn, be back in Aquarius where the eclipse happened on September the 11th. So the energies don't completely clear till September, October. And for you, Now, this is where we really start to have an interesting narrative. There's a need to really focus on the here and the now. The release is there's a need to be really careful of being lost in dreams and fantasies and goals and bigger picture things and even spiritual things to some extent. It's funny that we're looking at astrology, but almost, traditional, when we were looking at eclipses of release, I would almost say it's not time to be esoteric. It's not time to be big picture. It's not time to be looking at, it's time to be here, now, and be dealing with very concrete issues. Some of them are going to happen with how it is that you choose to generate income that is in your name. That is one set of energies. This is why for Gemini Ascendant clients, all these eclipses are working together. Some of them have to do with interactions and sales and meetings and communication and writing and speaking and resumes, and I think I mentioned sales again. All of these energies of be here now, listen to contacts, listen to colleagues, listen to networks, siblings, issues related to siblings. All of this being very present and very cognizant of how you fit in to the world around you, your neighborhood, cars, short-term commuting, all related to the August 11th eclipse. And tied to that, in the second half of this year, the question being asked about, okay, well, how are you generating your income? There's a link between communicating, reflecting on how you're fitting in, really being present, really listening to feedback that you're getting. And something needs to be released with ninth house issues, which have to do with hopes and dreams and wishes. Be really careful. I'm going to explain this. Big picture vision stuff, getting lost a little bit in God and faith and spirituality and esoteric stuff. And it's not the time to be thinking in terms of big picture, higher consciousness stuff. It is the time to be here and present and implement. And really be thinking about what is it that I do and where is it that I'm going to add value and where do I want to add value and what are my issues related to my self-worth and self-esteem, and let me start to put this in action. And interactions are really, really important and key as a way to lean into issues related to that. The ninth house, which is this spiritual where we talk to God house, broadcasting, even publishing, so sort of big communication things, mass communication things, spirituality. I find that our vision of ourselves kind of sits there, but it's something that pulls you out of your environment is where the release needs to happen. It is also, in my opinion, the house where the father sits. A lot of people will argue that the father sits in the fourth house. I can't tell you how many charts I've seen. It's the mother who sits in the fourth house. That's what I see. Then people will say, well, the other parent will sit in the 10th house. I'm like, I don't see that. Whenever I think of the father, they sit in the 9th house. So this idea of release, are you going to release childhood issues related to, is this something related to the, sometimes when it comes to eclipses of release, sometimes a person or an object needs to be released. So if you were in a spiritual profession, or you were teaching at a university or something, I would just be like, is there something there that needs to be released? Are you actually having to leave a job there and do something much more mundane and much more plugged into people around you? Are you transitioning from being a spiritual teacher or a guide and becoming a salesperson? Or those are ridiculous but very literal ways of interpreting the energy. Sometimes it could be the release of something physical, and sometimes it's a release of issues or esteem. If you were to say, Abhi, what does this all add up to? I would say, unless there's actually something going on with a parental figure, or particularly a father, look at, this is not the time to get lost in possibility and dreaming as much as it is to use the possibilities in dreaming. The most effective way to think in terms of bigger picture issues right now is to figure out how to make them concrete and real, and how to move towards what you want and take action towards it. And interactions and networks and communication and resumes and talking and speaking and being present and really listening to feedback. This is not the time to say, I'm going to write this book or I'm going to launch this website. And if people are giving you feedback, like me doing these videos, I could be doing these videos, and if people are giving me feedback and saying, hey, we don't like this, or maybe you could do this better, the worst thing I could do if I was a Gemini Ascendant is not listen to and implement that feedback. Because I will lose subscribers while I'm still hooked into this big picture thing that I want to implement. Okay? That's what I mean by releasing some of the big picture stuff and really paying attention to interaction. While you're implementing your grand career or whatever it is that you're trying to implement, pay attention to the feedback you're getting and act on it. If the grand design is to create this grand website and users are having trouble logging in, do not ignore that, because they will only wait so long and you will not be able to get that traction. That's an example. The August 11th solar eclipse that just happened is the eclipse that has to do with mundane communication and interacting and fitting in. As I said, I've jumped around a little bit. So you've got the July 12th eclipse that is specifically about income and self-esteem and abundance and doing work and bringing income in. The July 27th lunar eclipse of release has to do with these kind of big picture, big ideas, spirituality, dreams and goals and higher vision of ourselves, and the place where we go out of our environment, praying, communicating, and as I said, in terms of individuals, I find the Father sits there. And then the August 11th eclipse is the final eclipses, August 11th to January 21st, that sits in the part of the chart that has to do with speaking, writing, resumes, sales, fitting in, communicating, colleagues to some extent, driving, short-term distances, your world, your well that you live in, siblings, cousins. And that means that you have to unpack issues related to these and lean into them. And that doesn't mean that the idea is to get along with people or even get along with relatives or get along with siblings or get along with colleagues. It's really more a question of paying attention to not ignore what is coming up and not ignore what it is that you are seeing. To not go into big picture land and hope that something will solve this, but to actively figure out what needs to be done and how it needs to be done. Do boundaries need to be set? Even if you feel like it isn't time to take action, you have to pay attention. You have to lean into whatever it is that is unfolding around you. Is it time to take classes and learn some mundane skills? Is it time? Have you always wanted to? Heck, I started to do. This is not entirely true, but this is not entirely true. This is not a great example. But stuff like doing Facebook Live videos to some extent, or communicating. Have you wanted to speak? Have you wanted to write? Have you wanted to communicate? And did it in a smaller way? Teach primary school. It's not big picture, universal. It's teaching of skills, writing. That's why resumes come into this part of the chart. Sales comes into this part of talking about ourselves, selling ourselves, selling products. A lot of emphasis for Gemini Ascendants is not necessarily on partners and partnerships. So if you are going to be encouraged, especially in 2019, 2020, to bring in your own income, be careful of thinking that you're going to be delegating that or be getting into relationships where you're going to be managing, the money's going to come in through other people's effort. It's not going to work. The money has to come in through your effort. This is money you are bringing in based on work that you are doing. That doesn't mean that you can't contemplate being a CEO or being an agent, but it is not you cannot rely on partnerships to bring in that income. I want to put that warning out there. This is going to be my longest video, but as I was preparing for it and thinking about it, I thought, wow, Gemini Ascendants are having a fascinating time. Okay. I'm going to wrap this up and leave it at this. Once I'm done processing this, and I'm sorry, I could tell at times the video quality is not that strong. It's coming and going with regard to the flow and the smoothness of it, but I can tell that at least we're somewhat in sync. But the content is relevant and interesting. So I wish you, my biggest wish for you now is to really be thinking about who you want to be, what work you want to do, and how you want to start to do it effectively so that you can really bring in your income doing it. Knowing that the path, as it always is with this kind of stuff, is rocky. And that doesn't mean, for some people it might mean starting their own business, for some people it might mean joining a company. Whatever that is. Are you being given an opportunity to do that? Even if you're finding it hard to pivot, are you instinctively feeling like, oh gosh, I've got to start thinking about this in some ways? Even if there's no financial pressure to think about this, is this where your mind is a little bit, or you feel like you're going to go crazy? Trust all those instincts. And for the next 6 months, be very cognizant of, first and foremost, cars, pay attention. Are there breakdowns, or do you need to get a new one? Is there something related to driving or short-term commuting that is coming into your life in some way? As I said, relatives, siblings, neighbors, neighborhoods. Sometimes people can even move with these kinds of things. Since December 2016, have you moved neighborhoods? Next 6 months, August the 11th to January 21st. Not everyone is going to be impacted that way, but pay attention to it. And interaction, sales, resumes, putting yourself out there, communicating, speaking, writing, teaching, acquiring skills. It's all tied together. It's not the time to dream. It's time to take those dreams. I'm not saying don't be aligned with what you want to do, because that is directly tied to your self-esteem. In fact, it is time to take your dreams and goals and your vision of yourself, and the way to inquire about what those might be, to really see how it is that you can implement them into action and start to generate some income. And that is going to be an area of priority, not only now, but into 2019 and into 2020. And that doesn't mean that it's not going to settle in until 2020. That's not what I'm saying. It's just going to be an area of focus. Okay. Best wishes to you, and when I upload this and all the conversion and everything happens, I'll put my contact information in the subject area so you can reach out to me in case you feel like you need me to or want me to do a reading or look at your chart in greater detail. Feel free to share, subscribe, comment, only if you want to on the video, and more to come. Take care.